In our last lesson we set up all the pages, and now we're going to look at setting up the buttons, and the buttons are the parts that link all the pages together. So if we look at the plan, we can see we have a home button and then all the various buttons. So I shall click on Max Buttons, and we can see that currently we just have one single button set up, which is the home button. So if we click on that, we should, so edit, and that will bring the button parameters up, so we can see we have the button when it's pressed, the button when it's not, the button when it's not pressed, the button when it's pressed, and all the various parameters to the button. The buttons can be made to be very complicated. They can be made to be shaded, they can be made different sizes, all sorts of control, but I just tend to copy each button and possibly change the color. So what we'll do is we'll copy the home button and then we'll change the parameters to match a new button. So if we look at the plan, we'll take the next button, which is welcome. So the welcome button will be part of the home page, the home menu page, and when you click it, it will go to the welcome page. So the button needs to be linked to the welcome page. Hopefully this will be quite clear, but it's something that will be clear once you put a couple of buttons together. So so the button is called welcome. It's the button name. The link will be to the welcome page, which is welcome. And now, for the purposes of this lesson, I'll change the colors. So essentially everywhere that we see blue, I shall change it to this purple color. If you were to change just one of the colors, so for example we had blue and purple, then it would shade through from blue to purple, but I'll just change every single one to purple. In most projects, if the customer has a brand color, like a brand identity color, then we just tend to use that. So if their predominant color is orange, for example, then we'll just use orange buttons. Mixing lots of different colored buttons can look a little bit garish, so generally stick with one or two colors. Okay, so we've made all the blues purple, we've made welcome. Okay, we forgot to change the text, so this also has to be welcome. So the button's name is welcome and the text that it shows is welcome. We can get a preview and we'll see it's welcome. Now for some reason the preview always shows a shaded version, but if I say save, and then it will update the database with the new button, and now we can see it's not shaded, it's the correct color. So what I will do is say copy, and this is copying the button we just made, which is the welcome button, and now I'll copy it for the church tour. So the button's name is church tour, and the link is church-tour, so church-tour, and the text that the button shows is church tour, and really the button name and the text are always the same. I've not come across a situation where they're different, so that's quite straightforward. So then we save that. So far if we look back at our plan, we've made the welcome church tour. So now we can copy that again, copy, And the next one is if we look at the plan, we'll see that the button is called the Windows Tour. And I think I called the page Windows, so we can have Windows Tour. The text on the button is also Windows Tour, and the page name that it links to is just called Windows. So basically just going to repeat this process now for each of the pages. So each page has a button that links to the page. So for example, the Windows button, if it was pressed on a different page, would open up the Windows page. So the next one is Notices. Notices, and the page that it links to is called Notices. If we make any mistakes here and the button doesn't work or there's a problem, then we can easily come back and edit the button and change the data. So guest book. So if you remember, that's not a page, that's a post, but the format is exactly the same and the link to it will be exactly the same. So it's guest dash book. Okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll continue putting these together, but then I'll edit this tutorial so that it shows the buttons all finished. Okay. Okay, so now you can see I've put together all of the buttons with their correct links, and you can see them in reverse order that I added them. So they're all there. Okay, we have repeated two buttons. That can sometimes happen when you're copying. So I'll just check through. So I've got home, which is the standard home button. Welcome, church tour here. I've got Windows Tour, which is this one, Windows. You can see the link. Notices, the guest book. Those two are the, I did them the wrong way around, but they link up to these two. Church bells, which is here. The font. So we have an extra church bells. So what I can do is click Move to Trash, and that's removed that extra church bells button. I simply pressed copy twice and copied the whole thing twice accidentally. So these things can happen, but we'll keep it tidy by taking out anything that we don't need. So church bells, the font, bell ringers, the bells, history of the bells, and bell talk. Now, there was just one thing that I realized you might come across. So if I add a new button and in the text here, if I put this is a really long title, and okay, this is a really long title, you can see that the text has dropped down, and we obviously want to justify that to keep it within the box. We've got full control over the button width and the button height, but what we probably want to avoid is a number of different sized buttons, simply from an aesthetic point of view. So what we can do is we can offset the position of the button with this padding. So we've got top padding, we've got left padding, bottom padding, right padding. So we can see the effect that changing that padding has. Just allows us to move the text into a central position. Okay, but we're not going to save this button, but I just thought I'd show you what would happen if we wanted to change that. And you know, you can change the button width here, so making the button wider, there we are. So making the button higher, there we are, a really big rectangular button. So you might want to spend a little bit of time just playing around with your very first button, I guess, and just get the correct shape. If you do make a change and then you want to change all of the buttons, you can always just make a little note of the various padding and widths and heights, and then just manually change them yourself here. Okay, so you've got a lot of control over how the buttons are formatted. Okay, but we're going to leave this page because we're not going to save this button. I don't want that. And what we can do is we can place the buttons into the pages so that at least they're there ready. So if we go to the first page, so the first page that we need to add a button to is the home page menu, and that's the Welcome, Church Tour, Windows Tour, Notices and Guest Book. And so in the next lesson we'll look at adding the buttons to the pages.